listening to the Zach Gelb Show on Fox Sports 920 The Jersey.
All right, welcome back in. 5:18 from the Princeton Orthopedic Associates studios. Enjoying that football game from last night on Sunday Night Football on NBC. Eagles take down the Cowboys and had a really lopsided second half. Eagles ended up winning the game. They were trailing going into the half by 2. They ended up winning the game by a final 37-9. Someone that is always great doing the Cowboys games as their color analyst on Compass Media is the former Dallas Cowboys quarterback in Danny White, and he's kind enough to hop on board with us right now. Danny, welcome back to the show. Appreciate it. Zach Gelb here, and how are you?
I'm good, thanks.
Well, thank you for coming on. So last night, the Eagles improved to 9-1. You've seen football for a long time, and you get to see a lot of the teams this year in the National Football League. I know the Eagles sit atop the NFL at 9-1. Have you seen a better team this year than the Philadelphia Eagles? How about what the Eagles were able to do last night?
Well, you know, it depends on when you're talking about. The season is a long season, and you know, at the start of the season, I didn't think there was anybody playing better than the Rams. You know, now I kind of look at the Eagles and I look at the Patriots, and you know, teams have ups and downs, and there just aren't very many teams that ever just play well throughout the year. The Eagles are almost a mirror image of the Cowboys last year. And the one big thing, you know, that you have no control over is injuries. And the Eagles have been able to stay injury-free a lot like the Cowboys did last year. The Cowboys, on the other hand, this year have had key go down. I mean, nobody is more important to that football team than Sean Lee. And Tyron Smith is right up there with him, and both of them are out. And Ezekiel Elliott, of course, may be the best offensive player that they've got. He's out. And, you know, so they've just had a lot of bad luck, like a lot of teams. And, you know, to win a championship, to get to the playoffs, one of the things that you have to have, you just got to be a little bit lucky when it comes to injuries. And the Cowboys have not, and the Eagles have.
The Eagles still have had some big injuries, though, this year with Peters going down and also Jordan Hicks, so they haven't fully been lucky, but they still have the quarterback in place who's the most important offensive player, and defensively, we all know how good that defensive line is where they've gotten good health there.
Yeah, Peters has been the one, you know, that they probably missed the most, but, you know, you can usually make up for one guy and then usually even two guys, but when you have three or four, you know, it starts to get tough, and you've got to have great leadership. Now, the thing that's amazing is the Patriots seem to be immune to that injury bug. I mean, they have them, but they play right through them. You know, it's amazing, and that's what probably the most amazing part of the Patriots organization is that they just don't ever seem to have those down years when they have a lot of injuries, a lot of bad breaks, and they just seem to have a knack. I don't know what it is with Coach Belichick, but he just has a way of replacing guys and playing right through all that stuff. And obviously the Cowboys are not strong enough in the locker room and you know, with the staff and with the backup players and the next man up kind of a philosophy to overcome that.
Let me ask you this. As a player, a former player, I think what a big part of it is Belichick, and you're also seeing Doug Peterson do it this year. They're not letting that current group dwell on the players that they lost. For example, everyone was upset when you lose Jason Peters for the year, but they go to someone that they had confidence in Big V and Halipuli Vaitai. As a player, when you know that you lose a teammate for a season, how long does that take emotionally just to move on from it?
Well, again, it just depends on who you've got backing them up. And, you know, clearly the Cowboys didn't have someone that could step in and fill in and maybe not play as well, but at least close to as well as Smith. But I mean, they're not even close. You know, that the first game that he was out, the first game that Tyron Smith was out, and Green was in, it was they gave up 7 sacks. That's not doing a very good job of replacement. Either you put a tight end over there, or you chip him with the back, or you do something to make up for Tyron Smith not being in there. And the Cowboys didn't do any of that, and the Eagles have done that. What the Eagles have done in response to the injuries they've had is they've gone out and they've signed some players that have really helped fill in the gaps. Not necessarily at the same position, but Jay Ajayi was a great move for them, and Blunt was a great addition, and so they've done a great job of replacing those guys with other players that can make plays.
Talking to Danny White, the former Dallas Cowboys quarterback, right now on the Zach Gelb Show, Fox Sports 920, the Jersey. From the game last night, I know we've been talking a lot about the battle in the trenches, but this Eagles defensive line allowed a little bit more on the ground than they're usually accustomed to, but they did a nice job keeping Dak in check last night, forcing him to throw 3 interceptions. But someone that really came onto the scene last night, and he's been getting better each and every week, is the rookie defensive end in Derek Barnett, who last night had 2 sacks and 4 quarterback hits and 3 tackles for loss. So your impressions on what you got to see from Derek Barnett last night?
Yeah, Barnett's a great player, and he showed it last night. And that's what I'm talking about. Guys step up. You have other guys that fill in for guys that get hurt or are banged up a little bit and aren't 100%. And the Cowboys just haven't done that. It was surprising because what I was expecting was the Cowboys' defensive line to really dominate that game, because they've been getting better and better and better each week, and they just didn't do it. With those young cornerbacks and the secondary as young as it is, they've got to have that pass rush, and I'll tell you, Carson Wentz is something else. He made a lot of plays when the call wasn't there, but he broke tackles, made throws off balance on the run, and threw him accurately, and Dak Prescott didn't do that. I mean, he missed a lot of throws even when he could set his feet, but especially when he was having to move around, and I thought that was probably the biggest difference in the game, was the play at quarterback.
You really have great poise with both these young quarterbacks, and Wentz and Prescott, and Wentz got the better part of him last night, clearly, in a game where Carson Wentz would tell you there's probably a few things that he could correct. Just what Wentz has been able to do, though, Danny, just being someone that has played the position before, I'm just stunned how a guy, second year in the league, could be an MVP candidate. It's really crazy to see how quickly he's developed in this league and how calm he looks at doing it.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. He looks like a 10-year vet back there, and, a lot like Dak last year, but Dak had that great running game last year and that great offensive line and great protection, and Carson is doing a lot of it on his own. I mean, he's having to make plays that Dak didn't have to make last year. So I am this is the first time I've seen Carson, in person, and I can't tell you how impressed I was with him. I think he's going to be an elite quarterback, for a long time in this league.
Moving along through the rest of the season, what do you think Dak Prescott will be in the remaining 4 games of this Zeke suspension? Do you see him turning this around?
Well, I think I think he's certainly capable, but that's going to be the big test. I mean, we're going to find out through the remainder of the season, especially with Zeke out throughout his suspension. We're going to find out what Dak's made of, because we've been saying now for 2 years that we really can't evaluate Dak until the pressure gets put on him, and he has to carry the load. Well, now he has to carry the load, and a little bit disappointing last night. But he's going to have to learn, and he's going to have to adapt, and he's going to have to get used to that. And that may take some time, but I think by the end of the season we'll know exactly what the Cowboys have in Dak Prescott.
Staying with the quarterback conversation, who's your MVP of the National Football League if the award was going to be handed out tomorrow?
Ooh. Oh, man.
It's got to be between Brady and Wentz, right? I know Drew Brees had.
Yeah, I think Brady is coming on so strong, like he always does. And Carson's had a great year. With the touchdown passes. I mean, he leads by like 4 or 5 touchdown passes. Everybody else in the league, and so yeah, I think one of those two guys probably right now would be the leading candidate.
I'll tell you, as we're talking to Danny White, you see it from two different ends. Wentz being young in this league, on pace to throw almost 4,000 yards and 40 touchdowns. Brady is on the other side as being 40 years old, and he's on pace to throw for 35 touchdowns and over 5,000 yards. Just how about that, seeing someone dominate who's young and then someone at Tom Brady who I still feel like he's young. This guy's fine wine. He never slows down. It's remarkable.
Well, he obviously takes great care of himself, and physically, in the off season, he prepares himself for the game. He has a way of avoiding taking any real hard shots, and his body just is remarkable. So, I retired when I was 36, and I couldn't have played another year, if I'd have had to. So. He's had a great team around him. He's got guys he can get the ball to quickly. He's got dependable receivers. He's got an offensive line that does a pretty good job protecting him. But still, to do what he's doing, to put up the numbers that he's putting up at his age, is truly remarkable.
As someone that studied the position as long as you have, Brady is the best quarterback of all time, in your opinion, or no?
You know what? I don't buy that. I don't think unless you can make everything else equal, if you can make a static situation where quarterbacks are playing with the same offense, the same receivers, the same offensive line against the same defense, and everything else is equal, I don't think there's any way that you can ever say who the best quarterback ever is, or who even the best quarterback right now is, because it might be Phillip Rivers, it might be Drew Brees, it might be you put them in that same offense that Brady's in, and until you do that, there's no way to compare one to another. So I don't get into that. I don't buy it. Having played quarterback, I know how important it is to have the right support group around you before you can really do your job. And unless you have that, then there's just no way anybody will ever know how good you can be.
And wrapping up with Danny White, who joins us right now on the Zach Gelb Show. Going into the game last night, I thought the Eagles were going to win this one going away, but I said the only way the Cowboys have a chance is two things. If Dak protected the football, which we know he didn't, but then also something you talked about, that defensive line. I thought the defensive line was going to have a little bit better of a performance than they had. What was it about the Eagles' offense? What did you see them do to slow down that Dallas defensive line, which has been a big improvement for that football team?
Well, they ran the ball pretty well. They ran the ball hard. Ajayi was a real threat and something they had to pay attention to. The defensive line, DeMarcus Lawrence and those guys, that group, David Irving, just never were able to get to Wentz. And that's what they had to do, was to get enough pressure on him to force him to turn the ball over. What happened was just the opposite. It was the Cowboys that had the pressure on them, and it was Prescott that ended up turning the ball over. When he went into the game with only 4 interceptions, Wentz had 5, so they were both having great years, but he'd had 4 all year, and he threw 3 in last night and had to fumble for a touchdown. So, it was a complete turnaround, just the opposite of what the Cowboys had to do to win that game.
And finally, we'll get back to really much where we did start this conversation. I know a lot can still happen, and there's still a lot of injuries, unfortunately, still to come in the National Football League, and you got to be the best team now in November and December. But if you had to give me the team from the NFC, the team from the AFC that will be meeting in Minnesota right now, who are the two teams that you think will end up getting there right now?
Well, they right now they'd be the two teams we were just talking about. I think the Eagles, followed closely by, I thought, the Rams, but the Rams laid an egg yesterday. So I got to say it's the Eagles and the Patriots right now.
And then one more. Just you look at the coaching jobs this year. Doug Peterson up there for Coach of the Year. Sean McVay at 31 has done a really nice job. And Mike Zimmer, I feel like, doesn't get the proper credit. Just how about the coaching job of those three guys? Because going into the year, I didn't think we'd be talking about the Eagles, the Rams, and the Vikings, but that's where we sit after 11 weeks of the regular season.
Yeah, McVay and Peterson have been incredible. Just incredible with the moving around and different personnel and people and getting teams ready to play. And those two guys, to me, are the two top coaches in the league right now.
Well, Danny, we appreciate it. Thank you so much, and let's do it again real soon.
Okay, you bet.